If you have a smart speaker, you have access to the entire world of NPR and St. Louis Public Radio. All the latest news and all the captivating stories. Activate our voices with yours by telling your smart speaker to play St. Louis Public Radio.
Mark Mantovani is no stranger to Democratic voters in St. Louis County, having run twice to be the party's nominee for county executive. But a series of unusual circumstances have put him on the ballot for a third time and for the other party. The Republican candidate for county executive joins us on the latest episode of Politically Speaking to talk about switching parties, his plans to fight crime, and keeping a good relationship with the St. Louis County Council. Let's hit the music.
This is the Politically Speaking podcast, the definitive show about Missouri politics.
We have to talk about things that matter to people.
I've tried to bring that same aggressive iconoclast style with me to the United States Senate.
I think my district is a model for the state.
We put Missourians first.
You just kind of have to find the common ground with people.
I believe that this district deserves someone who represents their values.
After I came back to St. Louis, I started thinking that I could have a bigger role on the change that I wanted to make.
And welcome to Politically Speaking. I'm your host, Rachel Lippman. Joining me in the studio today is
Jason Rosenbaum.
And also in the studio with us today is our guest,
Mark Mantovani.
He is the Republican candidate for St. Louis County Executive in the November election. And this is, I believe, your third time on the podcast, Mr. Mantovani?
I think that's correct.
I think that's correct, yeah.
Pretty much every 2 years.
Every 2 years, it seems like, yeah. So you are joining us now because of an interesting and I would call it extremely odd set of political circumstances. Essentially, you're here because the candidate who was nominated in the primary for the GOP to be the GOP challenger decided to drop out, and the GOP party put you as the nominee. Why did you make the decision to jump back into electoral politics for this role?
Well, as you guys may remember from the prior 2 years, my commitment to this county and this region is very deep, and I continue to be frustrated with the trajectory of the region. There are also a lot of personal issues when one makes a decision like this. To some people, it might just seem like it's about politics, but it's actually about something bigger than politics if you're, I think, a thoughtful person. So, I have tried to make a commitment in my life to serve other people, and I have great love for the community, and as I said, I'm dissatisfied with the way the community is developing, and I think that there's potential to bring the community together in a different way to create a different reality for the future. And so despite the fact that it's very inconvenient to run for office and to give up one's life in the service of the community, this seems to be worth it to me, and so I responded when asked.
Faithful listeners of this podcast and people familiar with county politics may remember that you ran for this post previously as a Democrat. Why should the GOP faithful believe that you support their positions as opposed to those of the Democratic Party?
Well, so there are a couple answers to that question. First of all, both times when I ran for county executive, I received a lot of support from people of both parties. If you recall, when I ran against Steve Stenger in 2018, I think there were scores of Republicans who crossed over and requested a Democratic ballot and voted for me. And so I think I've always been a candidate that had appeal to people of both parties. But the bigger and more important answer to the question really is that the issues that our community faces, in my view, are not the kinds of political, ideological issues that tend to pull Republicans and Democrats apart. The issues facing St. Louis County today have to do with managing the St. Louis County government as an enterprise, which I think has been very poorly managed, and creating growth in the region and addressing our our crime issues, and building a good government. And good government, I think, is something that both Republicans and Democrats both crave.
The biggest criticism you got in 2018 and 2020 from your opponents was they accused you of being a closet Republican. Were they right?
Well, I don't know that that they were right about that. If you look at my history, Jason, I think it's pretty well documented that I have supported Republican candidates.
Yes, that became a big issue in 2018,
yeah.
And it'll probably be a big issue this time, but continue.
Well, look, if one believes that one party has a monopoly on good ideas and good candidates, that's fine. I tend not to think that. I tend to believe that and support people who I think are the better candidate for different positions, and my history demonstrates that. And so, if that's a flaw, I have to plead guilty to it. And I think it's particularly not relevant when we're talking about the administration of St. Louis County government. If we were talking about voting for Senate candidates or congressional candidates, legislative jobs, that may be one thing, but this job is about competence in administering an enterprise, and that's what we're lacking.
How do you avoid getting branded an opportunist who will jump at, running for whatever party you see as being, willing or able to elect you? So,
with respect to being branded as an opportunist, that's a term that can be flipped on the other side, right? An opportunist is a person who sees an opportunity to make an improvement sometimes and to serve and to do something positive and accepts the opportunity. That's the way I tend to think about it. I think this is an opportunity. I think it's an opportunity for the region to come together, and so I look forward to bringing both sides together. Look, the challenges that we have in this region require us to work together. And the divisions that we have in this community are not just political, they're racial, they're regional. And I think it takes a leader who has relationships across the aisle, across the region, in order to make the kind of change we need. If people don't agree with that, that's fine. If people believe that that only one party can be effective, that's fine. I just happen to disagree with that. History tells me otherwise.
Because you ran twice as a Democrat and because the primary attack on you was kind of attacking your Democratic credentials, you were on record during both of those campaigns as saying you were in favor of LGBTQ rights, expanded health care, being against right to work. And you told me after you got the nomination that none of your positions on issues have changed. So wouldn't you be classified as very out of step as a Republican on some of the issues that I just mentioned that do commingle with county government?
So, look, I don't think my views have changed. I'm not going to take different positions here, Jason, than I have before. I think that, with respect to LGBTQ rights and what were the other issues?
Right to work.
Healthcare.
Right to work and
you
healthcare.
mentioned about
these should not be perceived as political or ideological issues. And again, they're only relevant to the county executive insofar as the county government is administering those things. Many of those issues are still primarily a function of federal, state, and local and state policy. But to the extent that they affect the county and the government that I hope to run, I will be true to my beliefs.
Realistically speaking, we are about 45, 50 days, I think, out from the general election, and you got nominated to this role 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago?
So. Not quite.
Not quite. What kind of a campaign have you been able to, and do you plan to put together in that short time frame?
My name identification in the community, surprisingly to me, but it's pretty strong, and people across the region know me. I mean, if you want facts and figures along those lines, there's probably been $4.5 million spent introducing me to the community over the course of the last 4 years.
And a lot of it was your own money, right? But not all of it.
Less than half.
Yeah,
less than half. But sure, I made I made an investment in a bigger investment in 2018 than in 2020, and again, that's just a measure of my commitment that the community isn't progressing as it should.
Do you plan to put more of your own money into this campaign, given that you don't have a lot of time to fundraise?
Yeah, well, we're fundraising well so far. Again, not only did we have some name ID, we have relationships with a lot of people in the community by virtue of those other efforts. And so I think we'll hit the ground running pretty quickly here, as we already have on the fundraising side. And yeah, I'll make an investment in my campaign as well, but I don't expect it to be a majority of the funds or any such thing.
Why do you believe you would be a better county executive than Sam Page?
Well, I could give a snarky answer to that, but I'll choose not to. I mean, as a practical matter, I think that the incumbent has demonstrated a lack of competency with respect to managing the enterprise of the county government. The county government, as you guys know, and your listeners probably are aware, is an enterprise with 4,500 employees roughly, and a budget of $800 million to $1 billion. I believe it requires someone who has had some executive experience. Sam Page might be a wonderful doctor and anesthesiologist, but as a practical matter, his skill set relative to managing an enterprise of that magnitude, I think, is lacking. Moreover, what this community really needs, guys, is it needs leadership. It needs somebody to speak to the community about issues. It needs somebody to create a vision for our community, a vision that's inclusive and built on creating growth. It needs somebody who can communicate effectively. It can again, Sam Page might be a wonderful guy. I just don't think those are his talents. And so we have a person, in my view, in this job who is grossly ill-suited to serving as St. Louis County executive. And look, when you probably are aware that I ran a fairly large business operation with hundreds and hundreds of employees. When I tried to fill a job, I tried to look at what the job needed. And this job needs somebody who has that set of leadership skills and that competence, and who also can get along with people. If Sam is deficient in any respect, he is deficient in that he is not able to forge good relationships with people. I mean, he can't work with the county council. He hasn't been able to work with the business community. He can't work with the municipalities. All of those entities line up to give me support because they feel like they've been disrespected by a guy who's been dictatorial around dealing with issues. And that's just not who I am. Leadership requires that you collaborate and work with people and you listen. And I just don't think that's who Sam Page is.
Both Steve Stanger and Sam Page promised that they were going to stamp out corruption in county government. It's one thing to make that claim that you're not going to have an administration full of corruption, but are there any specific things that you would do in your administration to prevent that from happening under your watch?
Well, the most important thing you have to do is you have to hire the right people. You don't hire people because you're going to receive some political benefit or some additional influence. You hire people who are actually trained to do the job that they're hired to do. I think Sam Page is susceptible to criticism along the lines of every hire is perceived, is made because of the political benefit that he's going to derive from that hire, as opposed to hiring people based on their professional competence to do the job that they need to do. That's the most important thing about this position, actually. One of the most important things about being an executive of any sort, but certainly a chief executive, is you have to hire appropriately. You have to hire well. You have to be smart about that. And I think the record shows that that's not something that Sam has done particularly well. All right, and I also want to just comment because I think it's important that the listeners recognize this. The nature of the corruption between the Stanger administration and the Page administration is very different.
Yeah,
Steve Stanger's corruption was primarily around financial transactions. I think Sam Page's malfeasance is more along the lines of trying to create a political and benefit for himself, power and the like, as opposed to financial. I've never accused Sam Page of being financially corrupt, but I think he looks at every arrangement as transactional in terms of what's in his best interests. That's not the goal here. The goal is what's in the best interests of St. Louis County and the people of the region.
We could talk about the politics and dynamics of this race all day, but we do want to jump into some of the major issues facing St. Louis County, and one of them is public safety and crime. You hear it both in St. Louis City and in the county. How would a Mark Mantovani administration approach public safety?
Well, the first thing that is lacking today is attention from the county executive to the crime issue. You guys follow this stuff closely. I do too. I cannot tell you if there is a Sam Page plan to deal with the crime issue in this community. I think that is dereliction of duty. The crime issue also, the crime issue exists on a couple of different planes. It exists in the real world, people being victims of crime. It also exists on the plane of perception. People in the St. Louis metropolitan area are scared. They are scared to act, to go, to do. There's a perception of crime here that also has to be confronted. Now, both of those things are mitigated if one formulates and presents an aggressive campaign to the community. Nobody's going to solve a crime problem overnight, but you have to be active. You have to be engaged. And there are a myriad of programs that have been enacted across America that we can piggyback on in order to develop an effective crime plan. There are approaches that we should be taking, and they should be communicated with the community on a broad scale basis. And we should be reporting to the community, look, this is where we are. And if we have a bad quarter, we admit that we had a bad quarter, but we're after it, and we're doing our best to create progress in this area. The fact that you're on it and that you're focused on it affects the perception issue considerably.
What would be part of the Mark Mantovani plan? If Sam Page doesn't have one, what is the Mark Mantovani plan?
Well, so there are many aspects that have to be considered. I mean, you have to continue to invest in policing. All right, we have to invest, as we were supposed to do under the Prop P plan, in community policing. We have to engage the community in a broader way. We have to. And we have to communicate this stuff across the community. So what I would be doing is I would be engaging people from different parts of the community in order to get their participation in developing our own program, but engaging with the police and the clergy and the business community and others in order to formulate a plan, announcing it to the community, say, look, this is where we're headed. And then you establish metrics, and you move forward with the community, communicating this stuff as you go.
Now, you mentioned Proposition P, which is a half-cent sales tax increase that was passed in 2017. Do you think that it's failed in its purpose of trying to transform public safety? And if so, how would you get it back on track?
Well, I'm not certain it's been effectively executed. I mean, we're... ironically, just this week, right, there's an announcement of some investment in new police precinct buildings and the like, which could have happened, I think, years ago. We still haven't gotten the 2 officers in a vehicle like Prop P was supposed to do. We're badly shorted. There's a bad shortage of police officers in St. Louis County. We have 125 positions that are unfilled. So. I think the problem here has been more in the execution than it was in the original development of the plan.
Did too much get diverted away from policing to other, arguably public safety things, such as boosting the salaries of employees at the jail?
Yeah, maybe. All right, maybe. I think that I think that we have to pay our people well, right? And part of the reason we have shortages in so many of these public functions is because people are underpaid and underappreciated. our police are underappreciated, right? One of the things you might want to do in terms of as part of an anti-crime program is try to create an atmosphere of respect around our police officers that I think has been a victim of some of these horrible policing activities across the country, so yeah, I just think that there's a lot of things that we can do along those lines. But the point is, let's get after it. I can't understand how 4 years into a Sam Page administration, there is still no crime plan. What are they missing? The other consequence of this is it has a horrible impact on our economic development as a region. It is very difficult to get businesses to relocate here, to get people to move here because of the reputation the St. Louis community has for crime.
One of the other major ongoing issues for the region is the COVID-19 pandemic. Caseloads are better than they were, but there's still ongoing impacts from that. How would you rate the county executive's handling of the pandemic?
Well, this is so interesting, right? Because this is almost like a report card in school. There's the number of answers right on the test, and then there's whether or not somebody plays well with others. I would always have followed the science, right? I was vaccinated as soon as I could be. I encouraged other people on radio programs to get vaccinated. I told them where to go. So I always followed the science with respect to COVID. Yet, I think that the community's overall performance was abysmal. Because of the consternation, the best proof of that is the consternation that has existed in our community. The county executive failed miserably to be respectful of other people and their concerns, respectful of business interests, respectful of people with kids, respectful of gym owners and restaurant owners, respectful of other municipalities, by being dictatorial. And by virtue of that failed leadership style, he lost the community. And as a consequence of that, we've had this horrible consternation within the community about this, when an effective leader would have stood up and said, okay, look, these are our challenges, and he would have engaged with those constituents. And even if the tough decision has to be made, they would have been a part of it. They would have been included in it. They would not have been disrespected. You can't lead people by being disrespectful. And that's what he did. And I think that created unnecessary upheaval in the community. And oh, by the way, for those of you who might say, well, wasn't it great that he followed the science? The outcome of his restrictive approach, which was among the most restrictive in America, still put St. Louis County at a higher death toll on a per $100,000 person
per 100,000 people, not dollars.
Per 100,000 people, sorry. Than the city of St. Louis, than the state of Missouri generally, than most of the surrounding counties, St. Charles, Jefferson, and the like. And so with it all, it still wasn't a very effective approach.
Now, you mentioned respect, and both Rachel and I spent a lot of time listening to the county council public forum section where, yes, some people, I think, were respectful about their disagreement with Sam Page, but others were frankly spouting off mean-spirited, nasty conspiracy theories about COVID and COVID vaccines. If you stand up as county executive and say, no, this stuff is all nonsense, are you confident that those people will listen to you?
First of all, my comment with respect to respect, if you'll pardon the phrase,
yes,
had to do with Sam's failure to respect others who are government officials, right? And other citizen groups. I think he's been disrespectful to people on the county council. I think he's been disrespectful to municipal mayors. I think he's been disrespectful to many people in the business community, et cetera. With respect to county council meetings and the open forum, look, this is a big county. There are 1 million people here, all right? There are going to be people who have disparate views, all right? I would find it challenging to listen to some of that. All right, I think well-informed people probably would. I think, on the other hand, you have an obligation to listen to your constituents, and so you have to balance that. I don't know who was respectful or disrespectful in those particular meetings to which you're referring. I felt like the county council generally was very respectful of listening to comments that were, in my view, many times off the wall and sort of inappropriate.
We
right?
talked about this with Rita Days. Like, I am a free speech absolutist, so I don't think that they should have been banned from saying that. I don't even know. And there is a tradition in county council meetings that the council just lets them talk and doesn't like go back and forth with them. I get it.
I think we both feel that at some point there needed to be some pushback of you can say you disagree with a policy, but you will not get up here and say it is based on masks cause human trafficking. That was a favorite one.
I mean, the only reason you're here right now is because the person that you're replacing had frankly crazy views on COVID and the vaccine and masking. And I understand that may be a very small minority of the party that you're representing, but it's a very loud minority. So I guess what I was trying to get at with my question is, you're the Republican nominee, and you're going to be the leader of the county if you are elected, and people are going to be listening to you about how to deal with this pandemic. Do you think that the people of the party you're representing are even going to be able to listen to you?
Well, I don't believe that, generally speaking, there aren't well-informed members of the Republican Party as well. So I think I think we're all on the horns of the dilemma of listening to people exercise their First Amendment rights, and yet having differences of opinion. And
if there is another large surge of cases akin to the original Omicron wave or the Delta wave last August, where you start to see hospitals overwhelmed again, how would you respond?
Yeah, well, I think I've suggested how I would respond. I think I would engage with the different constituencies that might be affected by that. I think we would still follow the science. I think we would. I know people have asked me to say I would never have a mandate or any such thing. I would never say never on a topic like that. I don't know what's coming around the next bend in the road. That would certainly not be my first choice. All right, I think it's really important that we take a broad view of what we're doing to people when we make those kinds of decisions, and it's tough to do that if you don't engage.
And we'll be right back after this quick break.
The Gateway brings you the day's news each weekday from around the St. Louis region and the state capitals in Jefferson City.
Our schools are accredited. We don't need this bill.
And Springfield.
How many more years must pass before lawmakers see time is of the essence?
I'm Abby Larico. Join me each weekday for The Gateway on the STLPR app or wherever you get podcasts.
And we're back on Politically Speaking with Republican County Executive Candidate Mark Mantovani. And St. Louis County is getting a lot of federal funding coming into it from a lot of different pots. There's still some American Rescue Plan Act fund remaining. Where would you want to see that last pot of COVID relief money go?
Well, at this point, I believe there are proposals outstanding that more than exhaust what the balance in the account is. I think I'd prefer to answer the question this way, so far as what things are important to me that might at some point cost additional dollars. We've talked about building a crime program, and I'm sure there would be costs associated with addressing that effectively. I think we have to recognize at some point that we have to communicate more broadly with the country about the strengths that St. Louis has from an economic development standpoint. It appears to me, and I may be mistaken, but it appears to me that St. Louis County government has largely outsourced its economic development operation to greater STL. I know Rodney Krim, and he's a great guy and the like, but it appears to me that most of the economic development activity that is coming through the region today is coming through greater STL. I think I would not be excluded from that process. I'd be in the middle of it in a significant way. I would like to invest money in building a better, more effective operation to attract businesses to the St. Louis area, St. Louis County. I've suggested to people that I would have resources in other communities across the country whose sole job was to attract people to this community. I think we should have somebody in Silicon Valley. I think we should have somebody in New England. And a year or so ago, CNBC reported that 16% of the businesses located in Manhattan were looking to relocate. I would be all over that. Our region's economic standing is not acceptable to me, and this has huge implications in people's lives. My children are raised. My children are here. Most of my peers who raised children with us have seen their children relocate to other communities across the country. I think that's sort of devastating and unnecessary. This happens because we've not created the economic growth in the region that we should, and again, I don't see the current county executive being very concerned about it.
Let's talk about a pot of money that you may have influence over if you're elected, and that's the RAM settlement funds. Do you have any ideas about what you would want to do with that money?
Well, again, I think I've addressed a number of the priorities that I have relative to crime mitigation and economic development. I'm a big advocate of early childhood education. I'm a big advocate in investing in infrastructure. I think our infrastructure is crumbling around us here in the region, and so we have a lot of needs.
Do you think that St. Louis County deserves an equal share of the RAM settlement money when the county decided not to invest any money in the 2015 Rams Stadium when the city did?
Yeah, I'm asking the same question, to tell you the truth. All right, I think that I think that I need to hear the city's case. All right, the city is making a claim for 2/3 of the dough, from what I'm told. I need to hear their case. I think that I'm not so certain that those dollars should be split up equally amongst the three plaintiffs. But I would have to be a party to those conversations in order to really feel comfortable with how I would like to see those allocated. Now, look, having said that, St. Louis County pays the freight on most of the things that happen on a shared basis in this community. It is St. Louis County that pays the overwhelming share of bi-state development funds, the overwhelming majority of Zoo Museum District dollars, right? Yeah. I mean, it's like 80%.
It's why I will always push back against people that say we have a free zoo. It is a free zoo if you live in St. Charles County.
Yeah, that's exactly
right. It is
right.
not free if you live in the county or the city. But
right.
Continue.
Right. So my point here is that I don't think that St. Louis County and St. Louis Countyans get enough credit for being as significant of contributors to the structure, the fabric of this community as they are entitled to, and so I think that reflects a little bit on how these funds are going to be split up, and so the other thing that I think is intriguing, and if I were in those negotiations and the city said we want 2/3 of the money, my next question is, what are you going to use the money for? Okay. Now, do I have a right to influence how they no, but do I have a right to agree or not agree with the 2/3 breakdown? Yes. And so as a practical matter, I think if those funds are used in such a way that the region is going to benefit, I'm a little bit more pliable on that issue than if those funds are going to be dispersed in checks to city residents.
Are there infrastructure priorities that you would want to try and either have the county request itself or through East-West Gateway make requests for?
Yeah, I don't have a laundry list at this point, Rachel, for those infrastructure needs. I know that the highways, there are still incredibly unfunded roads that should be being renovated, repaired today, that are not going to be repaired for a couple of years. I've seen the list of which roads are going to be repaired when, and it seems as though we're kicking the can down the road on some of these places, on some of these highway repairs and road repairs. Look, my gosh, the priorities for me, I think the area around the airport is an embarrassment to people who come in and out of St. Louis. I think some of the maintenance of our public properties are an embarrassment. I think the trash pickup around the public thoroughfares in St. Louis County is embarrassing. I think we should be aggressive on those kinds of things to clean this place up. The chief executive of an organization is responsible for the sort of the atmosphere of the place, and I think we have to create a little bit more enthusiasm and excitement around our common area.
So I want to delve into, in the last few minutes we have left, on city-county relations, because you mentioned the 3 times you were on this show that your impetus behind getting involved in public services, you feel like the region is not moving forward in the way that it should. You could make an argument that County Executive Page and Mayor Tashara Jones, since they are politically aligned, like I think they share political consultants and they're started the same political faction. And
they're more ideologically aligned, too, in some ways, I think, than maybe previous two people in that role.
I could see County Executive Page making an argument, well, I can do better on this issue because I can have a better working relationship with the mayor. Like, what would you do to make sure that you're working cohesively with the city?
Well, first of all, I respect the mayor a lot. I think, and I've said this for years, I respect Tashara Jones a lot. I think she's very smart. And in fact, if you go back and look at my political contributions, you'll find back some contributions to Tashara. I think I can work well with her. I think that one of the advantages that my candidacy holds, candidly, is that I can work with people across the aisle. In fact, I think that's something that County Executive Page can't do. I think that by virtue of my past and present, I can work with both sides of the aisle. I think I can work with the governor. I think I can work with Cori Bush. All right, and I don't think anybody else can do all that. I think I can.
What's your thoughts on the city of St. Louis joining the county as a municipality?
Well, so I think if the residents of both parties want to do that, I think that's fine. I think it sort of makes sense, candidly, if the residents of both parties, both places, wanted to do it. For me, the most important thing is that we have to recognize that this is one place, and we have to work together. I've advocated for this for a long time, and a lot of people misconstrue it as though I'm somehow suggesting that we should be merging. I've not. I've only said that we need to collaborate more effectively and recognize that our futures are inextricably connected. And people who deny that, I think, are unrealistic.
Aside from economic development, which you've mentioned, and public safety, which you've mentioned, are there other areas where you think collaboration needs to be enhanced to keep the region from backsliding further?
Let's go back to the COVID situation. It was preposterous, in my view, that there were, at times, different mandates around the pandemic based on which side of River de Pere you were on. This makes no sense to me, all right? The answer is I think the health departments certainly ought to be much more collaborative and even integrated, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm sure there are others as well. But I think we should be looking at working together at the very least on these kinds of things. I mean, you had restaurants on one side of the street that were shutting down, and And candidly, I think that's true not just between St. Louis County and St. Louis City. I think it's true around our surrounding counties as well. People who follow this stuff more closely than me with respect to Jefferson County tell me that Jefferson County sales taxes last December went through the roof because everybody was leaving St. Louis County to go down and do business at the end of the year last year in Jefferson County. Well, that's not really what we want to do, isn't it? Shouldn't we all be kind of working together? This is one region, right? And again, I think I'm uniquely situated to be able to bring all these folks together.
For all of our stories on this contest and everything else, you can stop by our website, stlpr.org. I am on Twitter at rlipman, 2 P's and 2 N's. Jason, where are you?
Jay Rosenbaum.
And Mark Mantovani, where can people find you or your campaign on Twitter and social media?
We've only had about 12 days to do this. So the campaign's name, the campaign committee's name is Mark Mantovani for STL. And the website is in progress, so we'll let you know whenever that's up and running.
Politically Speaking is a product of St. Louis Public Radio, a service of the University of Missouri St. Louis. Until next time, so long.